Welcome to Beyond the Margins, the podcast, the place where we engage, educate, empower, and elevate. I'm your lead learner and host, Dr. Sohn A. Each week, I sit down with some of the brightest minds and dynamic leaders in education to challenge traditional narratives, especially those shaping the experiences of students at the margins. Together, we explore new ways to reimagine schools, classrooms, and learning communities as spaces for growth and transformation. At Beyond the Margins, we center students too often overlooked, sharing the stories, strategies, and ideas that matter most. Voices long pushed aside are brought to the center. Welcome to Beyond the Margins. Did you know, each year, hundreds of thousands of people return home from prisons across the United States. Research consistently shows that education is one of the most effective tools for reducing recidivism and improving employment outcomes after release. A landmark RAND Corporation meta-analysis found that incarcerated individuals who participated in correctional education programs had 43% lower odds of returning to prison than those who did not. The same research found that correctional education improves post-release employment opportunities and can save taxpayers money by reducing future incarceration. Today's guest is Dr. Mark Booker, a social science practitioner and lecturer in the Department of Sociology and Criminal Justice at Delaware State University. For decades, Dr. Booker has worked at the intersection of higher education, criminal justice, and restorative justice. His work has included teaching in correctional institutions through programs affiliated with Morgan State University, Coppin State University, University of Baltimore, and Bowie State University. Beyond the classroom, he partners with correctional leaders, university officials, and community stakeholders to expand educational opportunities for incarcerated learners. His research focuses on prison higher education, recidivism, community engagement, and creating pathways to restoration and redemption. Please help me welcome Dr. Mark Booker. Welcome to the show, Dr. Booker.
Dr. Buss, thank you so much. Do appreciate being here with you and your audience and those who are going to participate this afternoon.
Absolutely, good brother. Hey, look, you and I, we work together. We've been in the field together, side by side, shoulder by shoulder. And so I know you have lots of good information that you're going to share with our listeners today. So let's get ready to jump in. Before we get all the way in, please tell the Beyond the Margins audience a little bit about your origin. How did you get started in the profession and how did you end up here?
I ended up in it at some point in time years ago. I was an adjunct faculty at Morgan State University and was adjunct faculty at Coppin State University. And I remember many years ago, the chairperson at Morgan State University asked any of us who would like to teach in a prison after we were on campus. And I came to find out that no other professor wanted to leave from the east side of Baltimore, where Morgan State University is, to drive all the way over to so-called the west side, deep Howard County, Maryland, Jessup. But I was always curious about what I read and what was in the information about prisons and corrections and higher education in prisons and teaching. I was just curious to find out what was beyond, no pun intended, what was beyond the textbook. And so I got the opportunity to go teach at Patuxent in Jessup, Patuxent Institution, and got the opportunity to teach at the Maryland Penitentiary, downtown Baltimore City, by way of both Morgan State University and Coppin State at the time, who were offering courses. That was my beginning, if you will.
Okay. And so over those many years of teaching behind the fence, as we say, what was like the first inclination that you had that, hey, education can really be a transformative vessel, especially for incarcerated persons?
Sure. Let me say that it didn't hit me in my soul like it is at this hour, at the point, because one of my childhood friends, who I hadn't seen in many, many years, this is way after college, that he was in one of those prisons. I don't remember if it was so long ago, if it was Patuxent or if it was the Maryland Penitentiary. But when I walked into the classroom, we looked at each other just like you and I looking at each other, like we've known each other for a period of time. And Dr. Butts, I got to tell you, man, it troubled my soul really bad. Like, it was very, very painful to think that he was in these maximum security prison situation and I wasn't there. Not that I deserved to be there necessarily, but we came from the same neighborhood. Like, what did he do that caused him to have to do that? Our parents knew each other. We played ball together. We rode bikes together.
Right.
Just we was in the neighborhood. So I don't know what that was, but it troubled my soul when I actually saw that. So as time went on, to shorten the story, I now feel like it's not only my calling, but it's an academic duty to do that,
Yeah.
obligation to feel. And I think from learning from the students when I walked into several classrooms at this point now, I have been in Jessup Correctional Institution, Patuxent Institution, and the Maryland Penitentiary. The students sometimes look at me to say, why are you in here doing this?
Mm-hmm.
And that opens up the conversation about a level of commitment because I think that the application of education is a demonstration.
Yeah.
And part of
It's
that
an action. It has to be action oriented. You have to do something.
is action oriented. The conversation for me, I feel as though that I am a practitioner in my work. And a practitioner in the work must leave the ivory tower and go where the work is, and you have to see it. And one of the things that I share with students when I'm in a classroom is, do you know it when you see it?
Mm.
Do you know criminal justice when you see it? Do you know law enforcement? Do you know sociology when you see it? Do you know higher education in prison when you see it?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and to that point is now I'm deeply entrenched in it. Students receive it, and the reality is, I think if I could stretch it just for a moment, that I think that higher education in prison is almost a panacea to recidivism.
Got you. And you know what, Doc? That's great to how I wanted to go next. Before I go to my next question, though, I want to say this. When working beyond the fence, I also see myself in the brothers all the time. And that's what kind of connects me to the work too. So similar to
Yes.
your experience with this childhood friend, I often
Hmm.
see myself and like wonder, hey, look, that could have easily been me, or it easily could have been people I care about. And once you work with these men on the other side, you realize they are everyday men just like you and I, who've
They
been
are.
caught up in the system in some kind of way. And
They
there
are.
is a level of commitment to practice beyond theory that makes you a true educator. So here's
Hmm.
my question. Many people do understand that education has the power to reduce recidivism. But what's one thing that would surprise people about higher education in prison and incarcerated learners?
I think one thing that would surprise individuals, that you would think that because they were individuals who have victimized persons, they have victimized communities, they have
Mhm,
victimized
mhm,
neighborhoods, families, then why would we even here, after they received a long sentence, have any consideration thought to allow them to even earn a college degree? Particularly those individuals who might not never come out, particularly those individuals who have life with no chance of parole. Why would we even spend time to do that? Well, first of all, it's not our responsibility as educators. It's not our responsibility as professors or instructors to relive the criminal justice system process again.
mhm,
It is our responsibility to give them the best constitutional opportunity to earn.
mhm,
It transforms the mindset while they're in prison. Less violence, less incidents, less conflicts. It deals with a whole lot of mental health, of the opportunity of the individual to see himself better, just in case he might come out.
right.
But if in fact he doesn't come out, let's not victimize men and women who may not ever see the days of outside again. Surely they can help others who want to transform their minds, to keep them from dealing with depression.
Mhm. And Doc, can I speak to that a little bit? A lot of
Please.
times, as free people, as they would call us inside, as free people, we often forget that although these people are incarcerated and away from society at large, they don't cease to exist. right? They live full lives, and the goal
Mm-hmm.
of education, in its essence, is human development. At
Mm-hmm.
the end of
Human
the day,
development.
we're talking about human development, not just recidivism or reducing recidivism, but the plight of every human to develop over the course of a life. I love the fact that you said it's not our responsibility to relitigate their crimes, but it's to educate them. And as an educator, I think that is where we must see them as students first.
Mm-hmm. Amen to that.
Yeah. So here's the next question. Why do you think the general public makes this false assumption so easily? What is it about our society and the way we look at not just education, but especially inside of institutions that make the general public kind of um, maybe snub education beyond the fence?
Here again it lies, I think, because going into prisons, and particularly maximum security prisons, geographically is deep and it's far. So it's off the beaten path. It's behind the woods. It's in the trees. It's deep over there near where the river is, where the water, large bodies of water. Uh, it is way beyond the train tracks. You almost don't even know when you
On
ride
top of
by
a
these
mountain or
prisons.
something? Yeah.
Yeah, you don't even know where they located. So first of all, the proximity is way out, and we have no idea what's going on over there. So part of that is we put them away. And I understand the dynamics of why the building institution is where it is. However, in some places like Washington, D.C., the proximity of a correctional institution is right in the hood.
Hmm.
We got places like Baltimore City, right in the hood. If you go downtown, you can see them right off the highway. So not all of them in remote places. But I think directly to answering your question is because individuals who have gone to prison, they victimize neighborhoods and communities and families. And the trauma of what that has caused individuals doesn't necessarily give us pause at this point in time for healing. It doesn't necessarily give us a pause in time for forgiveness.
Hmm.
It doesn't give us necessarily a time for what is it that we can do if we're going to deal with restorative justice and dealing with redemption. Those words are just not there at the time. And so I think too many times that's the status of where we are with it. But it is individuals, like many individuals, but I'm just a small group of individuals, including yourself,
Hmm.
who we find a place that is necessary to bring it to the forefront, such as today's forum, to just discuss the issues such that the public and the communities and neighborhoods can know that there is a place for it to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And what is obvious to me is it's hard to be a professional and work inside of institutions and not be changed by them. So I'm
Mhm,
wondering, how has working in carceral spaces augmented you as a Black man and as an
mhm,
education professional?
mhm. From the Black man's perspective, early on in my career to do this, it bothered my soul. It was tearful to go up onto the compound and to see the towers with possible correctional officers in there, knowing that they were loaded with rifles, to see the razor wire fence and 3 deep, 21 feet. I don't even know how it is necessarily, but it's way high if you climb up there, the razor wire, and that you have to go in and they have to pat you down or warn you down or secure you and check you before you go in the place. So you close one door behind you that slams, and then it's another one. But I feel as though that just maybe, Dr. Butts, if not us, who? Just maybe. Second, when I go into a prison, it looked like Morehouse College. Third, it looked like the brothers I grew up in the streets. So while there is a understanding of a level of dangerousness there, and that the criminal justice gave them a sentence for doing something, if for a moment, and that's rhetorical, if I did not look at those situations and maybe thirdly what's in the newspaper or magazine or in a textbook or a peer-reviewed journal that speaks to that population, if I did not rely solely on that as my facts, and I had an opportunity to have an empirical experience, they look like my cousins. They look
Mhm.
like the brothers I grew up in the neighborhood. It looked like the place where I went to HBCU college. It looked like Morehouse. So if we don't deal with those factors that can be intimidating, then let's get it.
Yeah, Doc, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Now I was going to also say, then once we get in the classroom, these individuals, both men and women, they ready to put the time in. They like, there's not enough books you can give me to read. There's not enough papers you can give me to read. Let me read word for word all of what's necessary in the 7th edition of the APA journal about how it is that we're supposed to write. There's not enough material that they could ever have. So for me, it is a sense of that it is working, that education works, and that they want it. There's a place for it, and maybe they had a experience that was unfortunate in K-12 space. Well, we now get ready to take care of that, because I can help a student from a GED to a PhD.
And listen, I know one of my first experiences with you, I sat in the back of one of your classes. I don't know if you remember. And you were talking to the students, the brothers, about the rigor of academics, the rigor of scholarship, what it means to be a scholar, and how the bar wasn't going to be lowered or altered or adjusted because of location and setting. And I respect that, because that is at the heart of true education. And you're right. Incarcerated learners, I've found, have been thirsty. You cannot give them enough. They just give it back to you. They take it on the chin, and they do good work, and they're serious about the work. So you've taught in both correctional institutions as well as on traditional college campuses. Here's the question: what distinguishes successful or effective prison programs from that of traditional college campus programs?
Resources that we can provide to them inside. Now, let me just give a caveat to that. If you're a scholar in your own right, you don't need a whole lot of actual pens and papers and books and resources. Yes, that is nice. We have it on the traditional campus, but you ought to be able to bring the information from your study and the work that you have put in to give to students in terms of what that is, whether it's criminology, whether sociology, whether psychology, whatever subject matter is, you should be able to bring that with them. So I would say that a major challenge is really dealing with those resources that we do need to give handouts to students, because they can't get access to the material like on traditional campuses to do that. So I for me, it becomes a matter of always asking permission in an extremely humbling fashion to the various correctional institutions, allowing me to bring in materials. And I understand the dynamics around contraband, but that would never be me. But nevertheless, it is bringing them up to par where they should have to be. So resources really become quite challenging to do that.
Yeah, the idea of, I think of, not in addition to resources, access, in the sense of human resources and availability and access for students. For instance, at the correctional institution you and I worked at together, there is a greater need and desire for people to join higher education, but there is a access gap or void by way of people or programs to fill the needs. At that same institution, there was typically 150 person waiting list just for GED, and maybe even longer for a college program. And so it's about access. And I wonder about, is this intentional because of the dichotomous nature of incarceration versus education, where one of them is, liberatory by nature in education, and the other is punitive in nature in the terms of incarceration? Any thoughts on that?
We surely could make that argument that it might have intention, but I'll say this with all due respect to the Department of Corrections, in the nature of what they have to do. I love them for the purpose of what they have to do. Their responsibility is to provide public safety, and public safety slides down that slope of punishment. What I will say is that we must have continued conversations with individuals like ourselves, like you and I, who have become liaisons unintentionally, to bridge what the university is to the correctional institution and vice versa. We come from working in carceral settings, and we've also worked in traditional settings. Our responsibility is to try to bring love to a relationship and make it sound such that the higher education can be okay with going into the correctional institution, but both of them are behemoths that in their own right do what they do, and they necessarily don't connect, but there are ways to do that. So I'm just going to say we have to continue to advocate on both ends. The correctional institution is doing what it has to do, and higher ed is doing what it needs to do. But our responsibility is to continue to show both that it can be a relationship that's collaborative to both. And in all of the universities and institutions I've worked with, it is challenging, but they've been open to it. They've been positive to it. They understand that there's challenges that work through that. But I haven't actually have not run into one that is just saying no to it. But it still is a campaign. It still is a sell. It still is an optimism. Brother, when you talk about it, because you and I, they look like us. We driving up on the compound, and they sometimes, we coming in the door, they treat us like we just getting off the wagon,
Yeah.
like we just got sentenced. And
Yeah.
I'm not asking them to give me any preferential treatment. I'm just saying, can I have a little bit of props to understand what I'm coming in here for?
Yeah. And if we're working collaborative, right?
Yeah.
Big if, right? Big rhetorical if we're working collaborative at the restoration, at the same time, public safety, but rehabilitation and the restoration of people, we could do a better team effort. My question though is, what role, because you and I know, and most people know, inside of incarcerated spaces, most of the people are of Black and brown hue. They look like me and you. What role does the HBCU organizations play in the landscape? Historically, we've seen a lot of predominantly white institutions inside of facilities. That's great. We want more. But does HBCUs have some ownership because, again, the demographics of the prison population?
Well, HBCUs, in my opinion, don't have some of it. We have all of it. Every drop. Why is that? Because all of the literature says about HBCUs that we have that secret sauce that helps students, and the intentionality of why HBCUs were born in the first place. And HBCUs, rightly so, braggadociously speak to the statistics of individuals who graduate and do well. Well, if in fact we have done well, and if in fact they continue to graduate individuals who do extremely well, and I'm not just talking about financially, we contribute to the landscape of wellness across humanitarianism. Since we have that sauce, that cultural connection, that recipe, that love, all we need to do is take a few scoops right into the prisons, and it works. The same thing that I got as a student at a HBCU, I'm giving it to the students in prison. They're getting the exact same dose.
Yeah.
The only thing different in it is that it's just contemporary. They're getting a fresh scoop of it. And honestly, Dr. Butts, I don't know any other way but to give it to them the way my professors gave it to me.
But you're right on the heart of it, Doc. You're talking about cultural connection and its relevance to student engagement, no matter where it is. Once students, and you know this, I know this, we should all know this. Once students can feel like there's a connection culturally, the academic rigor, all of those other scholastic things can then take place. Without it, it's hard for students to engage. And so by bringing in relevant programs from HBCUs that can speak what you call that secret sauce into a classroom may be very beneficial. Why do you think we don't see more programs like that?
I really would like not to talk about that online, but I'm going to touch it because I'm here today. E. Franklin Frazier, in his book about the Black bourgeoisie. That's why. That's why.
Okay.
I think also that, and you and I have had this conversation. Who graduates from college with a doctorate degree with the interest to go teach in a maximum security prison from a HBCU?
No one.
Well, man, there's no dot to connect that.
Yeah.
So part of it is the intentionality of what is the purpose in that. So there are many ways to touch the uplifting of communities. And just perhaps you and I doing the work we do in prisons, maybe that's what our work. Maybe that is what our work is. All I'm gonna say to you is they look like the people I went to school with. They look like the individuals that was in my neighborhood.
Yeah.
They looked
Yeah.
like an HBCU campus.
Mm-hmm.
And let me also share this. Yes, I have a deep scoop in some of that HBCU sauce, but I've had white students in my classroom. They get no less. They
Mm-hmm.
get the same thing that I give the black students,
Yeah.
and they love it.
Yeah. A
They
research
get the
says,
same thing.
Doc, that
Many students, let me touch it just for a little deep. It's making me think about something.
go ahead.
Many white students have never seen a black professor. I've never seen a black instructor, and surely they never had the experience of a black professor from an HBCU that grew up in the hood. They don't know what that is. So for them, they are almost forced to reckon with the dynamics of the scholarly intellectualism that we can bring to a student that helps them in their relationships with their students who are black. And when they get out at some point in time, they will understand, or at least they will have an experience forced upon them to cope with a black professor. And then in addition to that, a black man who can teach them a few things.
Yeah, and research shows, Doc, that everybody benefits from culturally relevant instruction and diversity. Not just one thing, but learning from other traditions and culture. And you're right, many non-black people don't often have black educators. And you've had those opportunities. I've had those opportunities. And, it's cross-pollination is what needs to happen more often.
Mm-hmm.
And we see that trend on traditional HBCU campuses too. There's a
Mm-hmm.
great uptick in non-black students applying and attending.
Mm-hmm.
So, resources aside, Doc, what are some of the biggest barriers that incarcerated students face? And this is a two-part question. What are the barriers that they face, and how do successful programs mitigate those barriers?
I think one of the factors that they face is having a introduction class about what is expected of them in the prison. So we are bringing we're bringing college into a prison culture, which is a microcosm of a deep cultural prisonism, if you will. How do you take the mindset that he just came off his cell, whatever that experience was, the day before, the week before, the hour before, on his way, and then all of a sudden his mind got to be clear for the enthusiasm and the robustness of what I'm getting ready to say, or you get ready to say, or other professors, regardless of the ethnicity. So I think we need to have conversations with them, maybe just a whole semester of having conversation about the experience from the cell room to the university classroom that's in the correctional institution.
Yeah.
Let's have a semester to talk about that, because we looking at them as if they ready. We don't know that. Let them talk to us. And the reason why that I speak to that as a barrier is because sometimes we have to have just a conversation. We just got to rap for a minute before we get into of course, social institution. We just got to have a conversation about whatever's going on that they feel in some kind of way. Sometimes this is a place where they have to have that level of vulnerability for a minute.
Yeah.
I speak about the vulnerability for a moment, that we were in class and a student said, "Can I just have a testimony for a minute?" Dr. Buss, he said, "Can he have a testimony for a minute?" I said, "Go right ahead." I said, "Would you like to stay from your seat, or would you like to come to the front?" He said, "If it's okay, can I stand up in my feet and come to the front?" Brother, he talked about his lack of literacy and did not want to expose himself in the class too early because of the peer pressure. He had all of us in there in tears. Can you imagine being a maximum security prison the way men are, and we got our eyes teary-eyed? Everybody was trying to hold back. But he used that as an opportunity to say, "I'm ready to learn. I did not know how to read a dictionary before I came. I was not literate, but now being in the classroom, I feel comfortable to talk about that." Those are dynamic barriers that students have before we get into the subject matter. That's one.
Yeah.
Second is, I would like to have a conversation with the frontline personnel, they call them correctional officers, to really get their thoughts about, should we come in or should we not? Do you feel us or do you not?
Yeah.
I understand that you got to tell me to take off my shoes and take my belt off. I understand that my things must be searched. But I would love to know, just generally, are y'all okay with us coming in? And if not, what is it that we could do better with that? Please just let me have a conversation with you. Barrier, because when I say barrier also, because now I got to work myself together for a good, sometimes it's 5 minutes. It's been up to 30 minutes before I get to the classroom. Even if I get to the institution an hour in advance, now I have to exhale and get myself together because of how they did me coming in the situation. And I'm not asking for preferential treatment. I'm going to oblige for what they need. So barrier one is to allow students to exhale about what it is before we get into the subject matter. And that might be a whole semester class. And second is, could we have the understanding of what the correctional officers feel when we come in? Why is it that we can't have just a little bit more kindness, a little bit more courtesy, a little bit more understanding that the reason why we come in here? And I would love to know their opinion about what they think about when we bring in it. We're not just bringing in a program. We're bringing in circumstances where individuals deeply take serious about reading and writing. So those are my 2 points. I can give you a whole lot more, but you got them.
Nah, that's 2 great points. I think to your first point, I think there have to be real conversations around the expectations and the realities of college. For instance, I don't know many people who come through the college 4-year program unscathed, right? You have challenges and obstacles. Everybody don't get a 4.0. You're gonna take some lumps as you go, right? And so I think the realities are sometimes few and far between. You and I both know that those cohorts can be people that are young 20s, maybe traditional college age, and then there could be people in their 40s, 50s, 60s, and there's a gamut of different lived experiences and different realities about what college is. So I agree. I think some more time could be spent on the front end preparing students for scholarship. But to your second point, I often have felt like we come in as educators and are undoing their work as corrections. And they see us as undoing their work as correction. When I don't think that's true. I think that the two things can coexist in a world where we must have prisons, right? But oftentimes, like you said, I've felt the same thing. Am I being mistreated or mishandled because of the work I'm doing in this place? And if so, how can we do better by mending those relationships? So that, again, we're producing a person who has an opportunity to transform his or her life.
Beyond the Margins, the podcast, will return in a moment.
Your Divine Journey, LLC, is here to walk with you through life's ups and downs. Whether you're seeking therapy, life coaching, support, or personal consultations, we provide a safe, empowering space to heal, grow, and step into your best self. Your journey is unique. Let's make it divine. Connect with us today and start moving forward with clarity, confidence, and peace. www.yourdivinejourney.llc.
At the Travel Bureau, we are dedicated to creating bespoke luxury experiences for the discerning traveler, specializing in detail-rich journeys designed with heart and intention. We turn your dream getaway into a beautiful, curated reality. Wherever you're going, the Travel Bureau will get you there in style, comfort, and joy.
If you're teaching urban, alternative, or non-traditional students and wondering why engagement feels harder than ever, the new book by Dr. Sohn A is for you. Unlocking student engagement isn't theory. It's real strategies for real classrooms, built on trust, relevance, and relationships. And educators across the country are already responding. Unlocking Student Engagement debuted at #1 in cultural pedagogies, philosophy and social aspects of education, educational professional development, and educational certification and development. Grab your copy today wherever you buy books, and let's change how engagement shows up in our classrooms.
Welcome back to Beyond the Margins.
What lessons can a traditional K-12 or traditional college student or college professor or college administrator learn from your experiences and my experiences beyond the fence?
Heavy today, brother. That's all I can say, man. You heavy today. You heavy.
Hey, man. Hey, look, I knew you was going to be displacing gravity. So with your Jupiter-itis, right? So you got to be ready for brothers like you.
Come on, man. Come on. I'll answer it, if I may, Dr. Butts, this way. My first teaching experience ever in front of students, I was a 7th grade teacher in a 7th grade teacher in Baltimore County Public Schools as a substitute teacher, which turned into a long-term sub. So I do know the landscape of the K-12 experience. Oftentimes, students who are incarcerated tell me about their bad experience that they had in K-12. I have seen many students smelling like they get ready to go to prison in the K-12 environment. You see what's going on in the behavior: suspensions, expulsions, detention, going to the principal's office, letter home to the parents, all kinds of dynamics that's going on. All of this behavior that's unacceptable. You know, students oftentimes, and boys, we playful. You know, we come to class and supposed to sit down and do what the teacher tells us. But if we play too much, it seems like it's antisocial behavior. If we play too much, it seems like that we're not cooperating, that we're not doing our schoolwork. So to the K-12 teachers, they are the individuals that spend anywhere from 5 hours to 6.5 hours a day. What is it, 182 school days?
82, 80, yeah.
Somewhere, give or take.
Mm-hmm.
They spend more time with the boys and girls than the parents. So the primary group, why are these students not feeling love? I'll answer it another way. And I speak to it to students when we in college. So you remember when we were in elementary school and the teacher had, let's say, 20 students, 1st grade, 2nd grade, 10 boys, 10 girls. 3rd grade, 10 boys, 10 girls. Middle school, 12 girls, 10 boys. Number drop. High school, 10 girls, 5 boys. College, 1 to 20. Now, when we look at those numbers, and I'm telling you, those are the numbers I have seen, witnessed, not because I read that somewhere. I'm talking about what I've seen. You tell me why it is that that number dwindles drastically by the time they graduate from high school. This might not be the form to say that, but that's what the number looks like. So K-12, what are we doing in that space where boys stop coming to school so much? It was 10 and 10. It get down to
1 to 20. No, this is exactly the place where you're supposed to say that, Dr. Booker. What is it about K-12 that drives boys, and specifically Black and brown boys, away from education? What is it about the process of educating a young Black boy or brown boy from middle school to high school that has them disconnect with formal learning? That is the question.
Just perhaps, and I say this not to speak for everybody else, but boys, we love to come to school to play. And sometimes play gets transferred into antisocial behavior that requires discipline. Second is we sit in the classroom in grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, and we sit in the classroom right next to the girl. They don't have rules necessarily, some of them do, but we sit next to them or we sit in the front because it's okay. Why is it all of a sudden now we got to sit in the back when we're in the 6th grade? What's that mindset? Why are we sitting in the back of the classroom in the 8th grade? I remember in the 9th grade, it was cool. We sat in the back. Nobody's sitting up front because it's not cool. Why you raising your hand so much? So something about that coming to the classroom,
something changes.
To be interested in it after that 3rd grade, we start wondering where we going to sit. and how we want to dress and not raising our hand as often and participation not as much. So when we don't sit in the front and when we don't raise our hand, it can be interpreted that we're not interested or not prepared.
Right.
So I think that the dynamics of the proximity to the schoolwork ought to be addressed. Well, why we sitting in the back?
Yeah.
And
then
why we don't think it's cool to raise our hand?
And then once these dynamics kick in, so do the stereotypes and labels. And so now it becomes a tradition from grade to grade to be, labeled one way or the other. So tying this back to our earlier conversation and your larger work around restorative justice, how can education be a tool, not just at the K-12 for Johnny who may be sitting in the back not raising his hand as much, but also for the brothers and sisters sitting in adult institutions? How can education be utilized and maximized for transformation of people?
There you go heavy again. And you my brother, man, and deep down inside as a humanitarian, I love you, but I don't like you for that question because you provoking something. But I'm gonna say it anyway.
Well, look, I might as well pour it on too. Not just for education, but also public safety. How do we?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's a heavy day, man. Hey, it's hot outside, Doc. We don't need to be out there sweating. Let's stay right here in the comfort of our air conditioning.
It's a hot topic. Yeah, our conversation and the respect that I have for this forum here with you is that we not having the elephant in the room. Okay, so we're gonna speak to it.
Yeah.
When in fact, both in K-12 and higher education in prisons, particularly I'm holding the professors accountable, when in fact we understand that we can teach a student that when they are doing their assignments and we hold them accountable for their assignments, they can't be thinking about assaults. When in fact we have students that we give emphasis to touching books, both in K-12, and I'm talking from kindergarten to grade 12, and in higher education, and including higher education in prison, that when we have assignments that's connected to books, we're not going to have any burglaries. When in fact, we have an understanding of giving students as much work that can tie up their time. Homework is necessary such that the boy and a girl is not involved in homicides. Homework over homicides, assignments over assaults, books over burglaries. Because you know this as your own self. You have more than one college degree. When you're studying, when you're reading, when you're writing, when you're computing, when you're in technology, you have no time to be thinking about being in the streets. So the emphasis in both areas is that we must keep students busy and interested. And I would even say we have to give education entertainment. School has to be a place where it is entertaining over the competition of the streets. Because if in fact we don't, let me say this in parentheses, we ought to declare a moratorium on the 8th grade. What am I talking about? We ought to declare a moratorium on the 8th grade. How many students who have graduated from the 8th grade don't go to high school in the 9th grade because during that summer they went to detention? They got locked up during the summer. We need to declare a moratorium from the 8th grade to the 9th grade. No student who has graduated from the 8th grade will get locked up during the summer and not be in school come August or September. Nowhere in the country. A focus of that responsibility, however we got to do it. I'm not saying it's just the K-12. I'm not just saying it's the church. I'm not saying it's the community. But we need to declare a moratorium on 8th graders. Now, one 8th grader graduating needs to not go to the 9th grade somewhere. And the data and the statistics of the demographics of the information is somewhere. How many students didn't? When we give other focus on if we don't go from the classroom, we guaranteed to go to the courtroom that's going to take us to the cell room.
These are sharp points, and I agree with all of them. But here's the question that's coming to mind. Do educational institutions and correctional institutions own the responsibility of this level of transformation, especially correctional institutions? I could argue, yes, education, that is the function. But how do we get correctional institutions on board with this successful transitioning and transformation of people?
Bro, it's a campaign, man, because remember, with all due respect, man, the warden's responsibility, man, is to give public safety. And if public safety means that the person got a sentence, we don't have time to be giving a whole lot of kumbaya to a bachelor's of science at a university. That's just not the systematically and on paper, that's just not the role.
Yeah.
But thank goodness for some individuals that help them to get that. And I'm not saying that they don't welcome it, because there's a lot of wardens and superintendents around the country that love to bring in education, and they feel they have degrees their own self. And those that don't have degrees, they want to professors to come in. So I'm thankful for that, and I've talked to several of them and been in their space about it and heard them speak on it, advocating and campaigning. But by and large, systematically, it doesn't say that that's their responsibility.
Yeah. What would you say to, everyday Joe citizen who says, why should those inmate convicted people earn a college degree on my taxpayer dime, and my son or daughter, niece or nephew either can't afford college or struggles to get through? What would you say to John Q. Public?
John Q. Public, that most individuals will be leaving prison. We will hope that they can leave prison better than they came. And education will give them the tools to stay out of your house.
95%, 98% of all incarcerated people will come home at some point. The question is, how do you want them to return to your community?
And if in fact you feel a certain way that you don't care about how they come back, that's on them. Well, they're coming back to the neighborhood. They need to do something. We got to figure it out. Just maybe they have a sense of pride in their college degree, their learning, their courses that they took.
Mhm.
And if in fact we can give some level of maybe intervention, if we can give some level of prevention, if we can give some level of restorativeness, we got to do it.
And look, for the capitalists out there, they're worried about the tax dollars. It's far cheaper to provide high quality education than to incarcerate a man or a woman for a year. So it's even actually cheaper to educate as opposed to incarcerate. And let alone the residual costs of reducing recidivism. Yes, sir.
We've been saying that number for years, probably since the first time that the first prison was built, that we've been saying that it's more to incarcerate and keep them than it is to let them out. Society does not mind paying that financial nut. Leave him and her over there. Don't give me cost benefit analysis about it costs more. They hurt my family members, and that's what it is. I don't care nothing about that because I don't feel it in my direct pocket.
Yeah.
But since that's what the case is, so be it.
Yeah. Give me my pound of flesh. And again, I'm not trying to marginalize or minimize, victimization, victims and victim families, but the pound of flesh mentality, I am questioning. So here's one of we're rounding the corner now. What is the long game? What is the ultimate win in terms of higher education and inside of incarceral spaces?
Multifaceted. One is we must keep the name higher education in prisons on the forefront of the minds of individuals at all levels, the judicial level, the legislative level. We must keep it there. The judicial branch. That's one. Second, as many stories that we can tell for students who have been incarcerated, who have earned degrees, let's hear their story. I'm going to say that individuals like yourself, many who are around, depending on how many we say many, because it's not a lot of black men who want to go into prison and teach with terminal degrees, but that's another conversation, is we must also bring students forth. I was in a prison where the student told me he earned 2 associate arts degree, a bachelor's degree, and a master's degree in prison. And one of his classmates said, for as long as we've been in college earning degrees, we've never been involved in an incident, never had to go to solitary confinement, never got a ticket. We have an extra behavioral love that nobody else has. Do you know what that does to the violence that's not in prison?
Right.
Do you know what that does to the mental health budget, that they don't have to tend to that group of individuals being suicidal?
Yeah.
That's a population of individuals that's no longer dangerous in the environment in the prison. Subsequently, a correctional officer doesn't have to worry about getting stabbed with a shank that's in the wall because this student was feeling some kind of way. All of them students who go to college, that's not them.
Right. Correct. And I'm also wondering, Dr. Booker, should education be conditional for release from institutions? Because
Of
we
course
know
it
the
should be.
impact of what it is and how it keeps people from coming back.
Mandatory, required, obligated.
What's one practical thing policymakers or educators can do in the short term that will positively impact or enhance education beyond the fence, or for those people returning from incarceration and their educational advancement? So what's one thing, a small thing even?
We need to take them to the prison on a visit. They got to go to a visit to a prison and watch a higher education prison program. That's it. You got to see it. You have to know it when you see it. So it's just not Dr. Butts saying this is what's going to happen and all the benefits of what's going on. It's not that. It's not the other professors, both men and women, black and white, who go in. It is those individuals. Take them on a visit. Let them go see it for themselves.
Yeah, I think they'd be pleasantly surprised when they see the level of scholarship and commitment to scholarship that these college students display on a daily basis.
Yes, sir. You got to go see it.
Absolutely.
Listen, we can write as many white papers, many peer-reviewed journals. We can write as many books as we want, many iPods, whatever it is that we need to write. The philosophy of higher education, prison, whatever it is that we want to write. Until you see it, it's going to touch your soul. So to answer your question, we have to invite them in to come see it.
Yeah, and that gets back to your earlier point of the importance of practice and being involved actively in the work and seeing it for yourself. So here's my last question, Doc. What's next for you? What's coming down the pike? And how can the Beyond the Margins audience stay in touch and follow you?
One is I'm actually working on a book in the area of pedagogy and andragogy as it relates to teaching students who are in prison. That's one. And second is, I'll continue to do the work as universities will allow and correctional institutions will allow me to be in the space to help students who are incarcerated. This work right here is one street. It's one street. There's many ways to come down that street, but I'm one street inside, man. As a practitioner who teaches at a university, it does well for me in my practice to talk to students and teach students and encourage students, raise the bar on the exemplary experience of, do you know when you see it? In order for my professional development to be where it needs to be, I need to see it. So it's good for my students. It's good for me as a practitioner. And surely the students, as well as you very much know, they love to see us to come in there. They take it up once we get past the front door.
Yeah.
For however long it takes.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. Brothers still sometimes say, hey, Dr. Butts, you heard from Booker? You talked to Booker? They remember, they appreciate, they value what we do on the inside, man. And so thank you for your work. Thank you for your commitment. And thank you for your service around this population that could easily be left out, that can easily be forgotten. Continue to do the good work. And brother, know your family, to us here Beyond the Margins, and anything I can do for you, just don't hesitate.
Dr. Butts, I thank you so much for the invitation. I appreciate you allowing me to share this here. You and I met in the joint.
In the
Not
joint.
because we got a center, but we was working on students who needed to get a sentence. We talking about a different kind of sentence, the kind of sentence where we put periods and question marks and exclamation marks and teach students about APA, those kind of sentences. I welcome the opportunity to come in and be a guest lecturer in any of your classes. You know what we got to do. Fill out the paperwork, and then on that subject day, you let me know when you going in, and I'm coming in.
Consider it done, man. And look, we'll have a good time. We'll get all of them together, and we'll have a session.
We're going to turn it out.
My God. And look,
listen, we're gonna turn it out so bad, they ain't going to let us come back no more.
Hey, look, that's good trouble, and I'm always up for that.
Come on, brother. Let's do it. Thank you, Dr. Butts. Keep doing the work, man, and keep us informed as you are doing. We appreciate you.
Absolutely, man. Thanks again. We'll talk soon.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
As Dr. Booker reminds us, education is not merely about earning degrees. At its best, education expands possibilities, develops human potential, and creates opportunities for people to reimagine their futures. Whether you're an educator, policymaker, correctional professional, community advocate, or simply someone who believes in the power of learning, we hope this discussion challenges you to think differently about who deserves access to education and why. I wonder, if education can transform a person's life on a college campus, why should we assume it loses that power behind prison walls?
Next time on Beyond the Margins.
Before we wrap, I want to personally invite you back next week. We've reached the end of an incredible first season of Beyond the Margins, the podcast, and next week's episode is all about reflection. We'll revisit some of the conversations that challenged us, inspired us, and pushed us to think differently about education, leadership, and student engagement. I'll share a few of my favorite moments, some lessons I've taken away from our guests, and preview what to expect in season 2. If you've been a part of the journey from the beginning, thank you. And if you're just finding us, next week's episode is the perfect opportunity to catch the heart behind Beyond the Margins. Until then, remember, every student has a story, every educator has an opportunity, and every classroom has the power to change a life. Thank you for joining us on Beyond the Margins. If you've enjoyed today's conversation, share this episode, rate and review the show, and let's keep the dialogue going. If you would like to connect, email me at Sohn@beyondthemarginsllc.com. That's SOHN@beyondthemarginsllc.com. It's been a pleasure being with you. Until next time, keep teaching, keep learning, keep leading, and keep pushing beyond the margins.